Most entrepreneurs really struggle with selling their product or their service. I've been in sales for the last 11 years now, and I'm going to break down the key things that you need to learn to get a deal over the line. So first of all, let's understand the difference between B2C and B2B. So B2C is business to consumer. Now the likelihood is if you're selling B2C, it could be a coaching program, it could be an info product, it could be any high ticket SaaS platform that you're selling to agency owners. And it could be anything from a mentorship / consulting or anything similar to all of those things. Okay, so that's what B2C is, and that is business to consumer. You're selling to a specific consumer. Now, business to business, this could be your agency service, which could be obviously lead gen, could be SEO, Google Ads, could be recruitment. Now, let's look at which one is more challenging. To be honest with you, I started in B2B. However, I would say B2B and B2C share very different traits. I have now done both for a number of years. B2B always is a little bit more difficult, okay? And the reason why is you're selling to established business owners. They're likely to be entrepreneurs in this space, or they've built a successful business, so they're a bit more clued up, and you have to make sure you're using professional language to be able to get them over the line. Whereas B2C, slightly easier, however, you still need to be able to integrate certain tactics to be able to get an effective sale over the line. So now we understand the difference between both B2C and B2B. I'm going to break it down as to how you can sell for both of these business models. So the number one thing that most people get completely wrong is leveraging their unique selling point. Now, their unique selling point, what people are doing is, let's say you're an agency and you're targeting businesses, you're selling your offer too much, okay? But you need to realize that in order to get a good deal over the line, we need to be able to sell ourselves. So unless you've got a brand like Lamborghini or Rolex, you can't sell your business. You have to sell yourself. So we need to leverage our USP being us, okay? So you guys, this is your unique selling point, which means we need to be able to build rapport. And there are plenty of ways that we can build rapport, and I'll go into that in a second. But we need to build rapport based on us, not based on the offer. If you're putting your time and effort on a sales call without doing any due diligence in terms of rapport building, you're putting all of your effort, everything, into selling your offer, you will not succeed on that deal. So we have to remember that this is going to help build rapport, which in turns build trust. Now, how do we use us as a unique selling point? Here we go. We want to become a subject matter expert. Now, this is transferable across B2B and B2C. This means you need to understand the industry. You need to understand the market. We need to understand trends. We need to be able to communicate in the lingo that they use. So, for example, if you're working with, let's say, corporate companies and you're trying to sell to, let's say, a tech firm, you need to be able to understand all of the elements of technology. When I first jumped into tech, I had to learn front-end and back-end development so I could confidently talk the language to CTOs. You have to understand it. That is what's going to make you sell so much better. So, the first step of having a successful sales call is leveraging your unique selling point as you to build rapport, which is going to in turn build more trust, which means that the prospect is going to buy into you, okay? not your offer. Stop selling your offers. Stop saying that you're going to get them X amount of results straight away. We need to build the rapport first. This is going to allow you, so once you've built the trust, built the rapport, and you're going to do this by becoming a subject matter expert, by understanding the industry, the trends, the lingo, the market, really being able to leverage yourself as an expert in the industry, that is going to help you build trust. So once you've built some trust, okay, we need then to be able to frame the call. So what do I mean by framing the call? In a sales call, you have to make sure that you lead the direction of the call to get the result that you need. A lot of people are doing sales calls all over. So to put it into perspective, that's the frequency of their sales call and is not measurable, which essentially means we're not going to be able to collect the data and analytics to improve the process. So we always start with an intro. Make this introduction about you. Ask them to introduce themselves as well, okay? Always do the intro properly. This doesn't mean asking them, how's the weather? This is buying into you, buying into them. Get a compelling intro down that is going to build authority, okay? We need to be an authoritative figure to be able to sell confidently. Again, this comes back down to understanding the industry. If you don't understand the industry, you can't build authority. Then, what we need to be able to do is set the tone of the call. So explain what we are going to be covering. So for example, if you're selling, let's say B2C and you're selling an info product, you need to explain the direction of the call. You might ask some questions about them. You might understand what their current situation is. You then show them the product, and then at the end you'll do some final qualification and closing. So you want to be able to explain the call, explain the frame of the call. Ask them, what is it specifically that made them want to join the call today? So even if you've had some sort of appointment setter, or you've had someone necessarily qualifying that call, even if that was yourself doing a discovery call, still ask them why they joined, because this is going to help us really understand the reason that they are on the call, so that we can frame that call into a different direction if we need to. However, we always want to stay with pretty much a standardized frame so we can understand the analytics as well behind it. Cool. Then we want to start doing additional qualification. Now, the reason why we're doing additional qualification, guys, isn't necessarily because you want to disqualify a prospect. What we actually want to do is give them the mindset that essentially you're not going to accept everyone onto either your program or your agency service, that you're very selective in terms of who you work with. What's this going to do? It's going to be able to allow you to have that authority, and they're going to feel like they're special jumping on that call. So you need to do some qualifying questions. So do some additional qualifications. This is going to create scarcity. I don't know how to spell the word, so just put in scarcity like that. Then after that, we're obviously going to be able to then demo our product or service. Now, this is the one thing that, in fact, I might wipe the whiteboard and we're going to do this together, because demoing the product, people get this wrong so much. So, as I mentioned, demoing the product, people get this wrong all the time. Let me explain why. When people are running a demo of their product or service, what they're essentially doing is talking consistently for 15 plus minutes, right? This is so wrong, because this is going to mean that we are going to lose engagement. Now, it's so important for us to have engagement throughout the sales process, because otherwise our prospect is going to go to sleep. We do not want our prospect losing interest at all throughout the call. Now, the minute you lose control is game over, okay? We need to make sure that we're controlling the sales call to the direction that we want every single time. So how do we avoid this? First of all, when you're demoing a product, don't ask them if they understand, or the service. Do you understand? And then you go on to the next phase. Do you understand? Do you understand? Okay? What we want to do is revert back to the pain points. So we're going through it and we're actually saying, okay, look, Mr. Client, when we spoke on our discovery call, you mentioned that you were struggling with this. Now, our solution allows you to be able to do X, Y, Z, and then explain the solution and start to have a conversation. Remember, sales is all about having conversations. You want to be confident, obviously, okay? But you don't want to come across like you're actually selling the product. What you want to be able to do is have a confident conversation, reverting back to the pain points and presenting a viable solution. Now, this means that it's going to be a matching process when it comes to closing. So instead of a closing process, we are matching, because what we're doing is we're matching pain points to the solution, okay? Now that means we will not have an issue when it comes to value, because we've already covered the exact value, we've covered the exact value that they're looking for based on the pain points, and we're providing a viable solution to that value, which is so important, okay? We're able to give them the exact solution that they hear based on what they're saying. So it's so important to revert back to the pain points when you're demoing your product or service. Don't let them forget the reason why they're on the call. Remember, the first question that we're asking them is, Mr. Prospect, what is it that made you want to join the call today? Don't be afraid of speaking with conviction and asking that question. Cool. So then it gets down to the closing process. Now, when it comes to closing, if you have done this right, the prospect has bought into you already because you have built rapport. So let's just get closing up here so you can remember what I'm saying. Closing. You have already built rapport, okay? And you've done that by becoming a subject matter expert. You understand the industry, you've built authority. There is a clear frame in the call, okay? So they know where the call is going. There's a clear direction of that call. Then, when it comes to closing, because you've built the rapport and we've addressed the pain points with a viable solution, as I explained, we're now going to have to do some objection handling. Now, a lot of people think closing happens at the end of the call. It doesn't. It's throughout the whole sales process. So the likelihood is you're not going to have a value-based objection. If you're getting too many value-based objections, you are doing this completely wrong because you're not addressing the pain points, as we explained, okay? If it's a trust objection, the likelihood is you are not building enough rapport. Now, a lot of people say to me, Dan, I'm kind of getting new into this space. I don't have case studies. What can I do? Well, in fact, a lot of the sales calls that I do for my agency and for my info product selling and for my coaching and consulting program, I don't even need to leverage my case studies. I have loads of them. I've scaled over 100 agency owners. However, I don't even need to talk about it because I have already built the rapport and I've showed my authority by becoming a subject matter expert, and there's a clear frame in the call so they buy into me as an individual. They're not too concerned about my product or my service, okay? At this point, they're so bought into me that if I tell them to jump, they'll jump. Not literally, okay? So that's that. Then, we're likely to get an objection on price. But this is where I need you guys to understand how to price your services effectively. This is so important, okay? Please, please, please do not charge too little, okay? We need to increase our pricing all the time, because if we're increasing the pricing and we're increasing the value, what you'll find is that they're not going to go with a smaller company or someone that's necessarily doing, info product sales, coaching, agency, whatever it is. They don't like buying here at this price point. They really don't, because they don't feel like it's a good service. They can't build the trust. They don't feel like you're going to address their pain points properly. What we need to do is some competitive research and make sure that we're pricing effectively, that aligns with our values, with our solution, with our approach to selling. Okay, so don't charge too little. We need to make sure that our pricing is right. The amount of agency owners I speak to or entrepreneurs jumping into this space, they go, yeah, I want to charge, $500 for my service. You're restricting yourselves, okay? Honestly, you are restricting yourselves. Make sure that you put your time into really understanding your pricing model. Now, if you get a pricing objection, that means the likelihood is you have not covered enough value. Because if I was to give you guys a situation right now, let's say I said to you guys, you can drive the car on my drive for £5,000 for the year. You probably wouldn't do it because you don't know what car is on my drive. Whereas if I told you the car that was on my drive and you wanted to drive a nice car, you wouldn't mind about finding £5,000 for that. Now, that was a really basic example, but it's because the value here is overweighing the price. So we need to consistently revert back to value. We do not want a back and forth. The last thing you ever want in sales is a back and forth between you and the prospect, because this then becomes a bit argumentative. And actually, what we need to be able to do is have a very consultative approach. If we have a consultative approach, we're adding a lot of value to their business. Now, when it comes to this kind of back and forth, people get this wrong as well. Do not argue when the prospect has an objection. What we need to be able to do is resonate, first of all. So that's the first thing, resonate. Mr. Client, I completely understand that the pricing is slightly too high for you as a business because I understand that you're in the market and you're just starting out. However, okay, so we're resonating and then we're going in with a however. Explain then the reason. So we want to explain the reason for our pricing and we want to revert back to pain points and then we want to revert back to solution and we need to find an alternative. Now this does not mean dropping your prices, okay? This means you could either look at suggesting a specific downsell or spreading over the cost to make it more accommodating for the client, okay? Because by following this model, we're not going to create this back and forth. We're resonating. We're saying, look, however, Mr. Client, the reason why we price our services this high is because of blah, 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 and then pain points, solution, and suggest an alternative. So this could be anything, like I said, from a payment plan, it could be a downsell. And this is if you're trying to close them on the call, okay? Now, if they need to think about it, we need to understand and give them all of the information, what it is specifically they want to think about. So, if a prospect says to you, Dan, I want to think about it. Okay, great. What is it specifically you want to think about? Is it the pricing? Is it the value? Is it our service? Is it me? Try and get that understanding, because then what we can do is really handle the objection, okay? Again, if it's down to pricing, that means we've not got enough value. If it's down to me, we've not built enough trust. If it's down to our service, they're not sure it's going to be right for their business. You've not portrayed the solution enough, okay? This viable solution has not quite hit the pain points. So it's all one big circle where we can really understand how we can work closely with that prospect to help them along their journey. It's so important not to sit here as entrepreneurs and push and push and push, okay? Pushing does the reverse effect. Actually, just coming in with a real consultative approach, giving that value, addressing the pain points, addressing a viable solution, not charging too little, okay? Resonating with the prospect, building that rapport, you're going to be able to close a lot more with confidence. Now, let's say you've managed to get the deal over the line, which is great. The selling process does not stop there because they might not pay on that call. I don't even suggest doing that. So, here's what I would do. Let's say they're agreeing to do it and they say, send me over your contract, send me over your invoice. What we need to be able to do is include the following: a value proposition, your contract, invoice, personalized Loom video showcasing the solution. Okay? These 4 things here to send after the call is so important, because if you are, let's say you're a client and you've just got on a call with an agency, for example, or an entrepreneur that is trying to sell you something, and you've agreed to do it, you're quite keen on the service, what you want to be able to do is have these 4 things to push this over the line, okay? Because these things here are going to give me some bedtime reading, and trust me, a lot of entrepreneurs do that. A contract, so that is going to make me feel more confident in your service, because legally binding gives me a bit of confidence. An invoice, so I know that I'm not being forced to pay on the call. Again, pay on the call is a no-go in this scenario. Now, you can pay on the call, but however, I don't recommend it if you're first starting out. And then a personalized Loom video showcasing the solution. Again, this is just going to give them that additional confidence in actually making that transfer to you. Now, if you want to go the extra mile, because you guys have stayed watching this video for quite some time now, I suggest doing this, an onboarding form, because this is what we call assuming the sale. Now, we've already got the yes from Mr. Client, but we want to assume that they're 100% coming in. There's no doubts in our mind, because if we're so confident in our product or our service, they're going to feel the same way. So the onboarding form you can attach to this to assume the sale and get them to fill it out before the onboarding call. Now, this also gives you a hook, because let's say it gets to, let's say you booked in the onboarding call on a Wednesday and it's currently a Monday. On Monday, we can actually politely call, so let's draw this out so you guys can see, right? Okay, so Wednesday's the onboarding call. Let's say Monday is today, okay? Now, what we can actually do is politely give them a call before the onboarding call. And we can say, and this is if they've not paid the invoice, we can say, look, just making sure that you can fill out the onboarding form. So reminding them of the onboarding form. And then we can hint payment. We can explain to them that obviously the invoice needs to be paid before the onboarding call so that we can do the things from our end to make sure that we have a successful agreement. So if the onboarding call is on a Wednesday and today is Monday, we can give them a call reminding them of the onboarding form to make sure they fill that out. And whilst we're on that conversation and we've asked them how their weekend was, blah, 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 we can hit the payment and say, oh, look, if there's any chance you can make that payment today so we can get the ball rolling from our side, okay? That then is going to get the money in the bank for you guys. And also, they might come back with some additional objections, which means that we can then find out where we've gone wrong in this process. So hopefully that gives you guys just a little bit more of an understanding as to how you can get the clients over the line. I will be breaking down some of these topics individually in future videos as well. But the most important thing to summarize, remember, it's about trust, it's about building rapport, it's about leveraging case studies if you've got case studies, and if you don't, it's about leveraging yourself, your unique selling point, pain points, viable solution, make it a matching process, not a closing process, and you will have so much more confidence in your selling ability. Now, the last thing that I will say is this: your most important part of the sales process when you win a client is the first 24 hours, okay? Butchered that. 24 hours. So we need to make this 24-hour journey so good, okay? So make sure once you've got the money in the bank, let's not let them regret the purchase, okay? Give them everything that you promised. Make sure that you aren't shady salesmen, because it's so important to look after your prospect. This is going to help with upselling. Now, I will do a future video on upselling as well, because it is so fucking important and it is something that you guys will make a lot of money from. So that should just give you a bit of an understanding on how to do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video and make sure you subscribe.